What's up, guys? Ben here, running back another episode of Scrap Time. I'm joined as always by my co-host James Crowder, the coach of
And
Atlanta
Detach.
FaZe. I mean, okay, you're just gonna cut in the intro. Yeah, we have Dylan here.
Oh, Ben's tilted now.
Dylan,
I knew that would
how
piss
you
him
doing?
off.
How was
I'm
your
doing well,
how
Ben?
was your trip to Minnesota?
It was great. The weather was actually pretty good in Minnesota, which was nice. Saw a lot of cool people. I don't know what theater we were at, but it was a big turnout for the ROKKR home series, like crowd wise. So it was pretty hype.
You have no idea what venue you went to for the event. You just pulled up. You didn't look outside to see like what the name of the venue was.
Yeah, it was called like theater something. I don't know.
Something theater. Yeah, no, I do the
Something
same thing.
theater.
I
It was
get
the old
that.
theater.
Yeah.
It was the Palace Theater.
Yeah.
It's sad that I know that, but yeah, no,
But-
I was actually curious your thoughts on the event, Dylan, because I know obviously you were streaming from there. We have some photos we can pull up as well while you talk, but I was just curious what you thought overall of that, like compared to the first one you went to.
Well, a lot of people are saying I'm quiet in your chat or in the chat. I don't know if it's like
Which
a
one?
production issue.
Which chat?
I think you or Ben.
They're saying on mine too. So Chris can
no,
up you. You want to go?
he's good for me. No one said that in my chat.
Dude, no way Ben's trying to silence me.
Yeah, Ben's trying to silence you, dude.
Dylan
He
is a
invited me
little
here just to
low.
not talk.
Yeah, Dylan is a little low, Chris.
Alright,
I just bumped
put
him
him
up a little.
I put him up at 150.
All right, but go ahead,
Uh,
Dylan. Speak on sort of your thoughts from the event compared to the first one.
Yeah, I mean, I knew going in that this turnout was going to be much bigger just because we're actually in Minnesota. We're not in Wisconsin. And that's where, of course, ROKKR's core fan base is. So there was definitely like double or even maybe even triple the amount of people at this event. And it got loud in there because I was streaming and I didn't have a live feed. So like I had the stream up of the like CDL Twitch page or the YouTube. And then I had the background of where it's like the main stage, the crowd, and my stream would just give it away because they would hear like the crowd chanting, of course, and yelling. If they're cheering, ROKKR did something good. If they're quiet, ROKKR lost. So yeah, that was the only annoying part, but it was a really fun event, and we met a lot of cool people as always. It's always good. I think it's a great idea that ROKKR is doing these home series just to get more people involved, going to events, kind of breaking that barrier because a lot of people haven't been to events before. So it's cool for them to get to experience it.
Yeah, next time, because you were facing good the stage behind you. Next time they should definitely give you, because obviously the feed's going to the big screen behind you, like it exists.
Mhm.
They just gotta run that cable upstairs to you.
Yeah.
You can get it in. Which is what we did at Major 4, or we're gonna do it again in Major 5. Toronto's doing the same thing. But I'm glad that you had a good time, and I agree with you. Like, we have talked about this now multiple times on the show. The ROKKR home series could be like a really interesting kind of test case of what teams want to do next season. I've already heard that there's a lot of interest. We're getting to the point of the year where teams are already starting to think or starting the bidding process for events next year. So we're gonna get clarity here at the beginning of the next 6 to 8 weeks of what teams may also think about doing these home series next year.
Yeah.
Chris, I'm curious your thoughts on that. Like, would you love to see like Atlanta do one? Have you guys come to Atlanta for a bunch of land?
I mean, I would do it. I think it's cool. Yeah. I mean, I think all the in-person stuff is what we should be trying to push for more. I don't know if it's gonna like stay like you never know the format like year by year, but any sort of like more in-person stuff, like we talked about, like the bounty matches being more like of something like that, or like I mean, obviously I would love LAN League and we all just like end up in like a little bubble of a place where like if we had, for example, even if you use Texas and you had like the OpTic spot and like imagine like every single match was live on LAN in person and you can just sell a bunch of merch and sell a bunch of ticket revenue and stuff. Like I feel like people make a lot of money that way. I think some sort of like in-person thing to generate more revenue for all the teams and stuff, I think is a W. I think in-person events for fans is huge, and then I think it's obviously better for players just to play on LAN. So like I think some sort of like way to incorporate more of what Minnesota's doing is kind of what we should be striving for in the future, like 100%. I think that shit's awesome. I think they're doing like a really good job.
LAN League, what a novel concept.
One day, hopefully.
One day, hopefully. We'll get more to the bounty match thing. I have a bounty match topic at the end of the show, but I want to talk about this event. Wasn't without some controversy. So let's dive in. So ROKKR played 2 series. The first one against London, no controversy. London got slammed. It is what it is. And then we had Boston versus ROKKR, which of the 4 matches that ROKKR I think was going to play across both home series, it's definitely going to be the most difficult on its face. And it turns out before the event, before the match started, because the game's being played on LAN, the players have white noise in the ear. There's a similar to LAN environment, even though they're playing on online servers, ROKKR has been trying to get teams when they come to play without the sound equalization. And unfortunately, Boston was one of the teams that did not agree to that. So sound EQ was used in this match. Obviously, there was much controversy about it. Chris, obviously, have a couple of tweets we can pull up.
Yeah, I'll pull
From Boston's angle. They gave a number of different, I'm going to say excuses because I don't think they're valid reasons in my personal opinion, but sure, excuses ranging from, they were approached an hour before and they didn't have time to practice to, well, we're going to play with Sound EQ online for the next 4 games anyway, so why would we change? I'm curious, Dylan, as someone who's played, this season and has dealt with Sound EQ, like what your thoughts were on that incident. Do you think Boston was in the right, in the wrong?
Excuse me. I think Boston is fine with what they did and how they handled it. I think it's more so an issue of the actual other teams agreeing, because like this is going to happen if there's not agreed upon between all the teams in the GA chat or whatever. Like shit like this is going to happen and people are going to lose full. People are going to be annoyed and go at it on Twitter. But like until everyone is unified and actually doing it, stuff like this is going to happen. So it's like kind of their fault, but it's more so a league-wide thing. I know Clay even posted some tweets about the chat saying like, yo, let's take a vote to get it all GA'd, and nothing really came from that. So then that's when Clay was also replying like, it's a dog world now. We try to get it GA'd. Of course, we don't know what teams voted for to keep it in, what teams wanted to get it out. That's a whole nother discussion. But I think unless the league is going to do it like completely and no one's going to use it, there's going to be issues like this where 1 or 2 teams is going to use it and they're going to want to keep it on.
Yeah, I mean, so just before we get forward, Dylan, like, in your opinion, do you think they should have played with or without Sound EQ?
If they're practicing with it and they're going to keep using it in the future, they should just play with it. Like, there's no point to change if you've been playing with it and you're going to continue playing with it just for one match. There's no point to practice. You're not there to be friends with them. You're there to make points, get your wins, do whatever you got to do to win it. So, like, I don't really see the issue with it, honestly.
Okay, Chris, what were your thoughts kind of on the whole thing, and then we'll get to sort of the fraternity part of it.
I mean, I feel like with it just being like an online match, even though like it's not online, like it's just like the environment of it and all that stuff. Like, I don't know. Like, I think the sound EQ stuff is extremely corny, and like I wish it wasn't a thing. But like what Dylan kind of said, like you're just gonna go right back to your next match using it and stuff. And like, yeah, I don't know. Like, they're still playing for points. They're still trying to, like, I don't know, qualify and stuff. Like, I just feel like it's just kind of gonna happen. I don't know. I feel like we've been talking about this for like a month. Every time we do like this podcast and other podcasts or like any kind of content around this, it's the same conversation. And I don't know. I think it's as simple as just not allowing it. And I feel like 99% of the people wouldn't do it. Like, like I don't know. I know like there's no way to prove it and there's not the best system to make it like 100%, but I just feel like this is just, again, everyone arguing with each other because like there's just no ruling on it, and I think it's just like insane to me. Like I feel like it's just really kind of corny, but like them not using it, like I don't, dude, like I mean, I've used Sound EQ now, and I've like not used it. Like even without Sound EQ, sound in this game is fucking insane. If you blast your headset, like it's not even just like a Sound EQ thing. So it's like not really why you like win and lose just like series like wholeheartedly. It does suck that like you can sound horror stuff a bunch, but like I don't know. I just feel like this is the same conversation every single time, and I think this needs to be figured out in the higher up side of stuff. Like I don't know. This is just ridiculous.
That's my point. Is like I'm a little confused why after the first home series, when I know ROKKR had to go to teams to say are we doing it or not doing it, that it wasn't then pushed back to the league of, well, if you're on LAN in a LAN environment, you're dealing with the white noise, all of that. Like, why wouldn't you just emulate what a LAN event is? And I'm surprised the league never. I would love to know if the league ever wanted or thought about making a ruling on this, because I think they should just take it out of the team's hands and just say, look, like it falls in the LAN category. We're going to apply the same rules we do to LAN. You're using league equipment, like no sound EQ, and then there's no gray area there, but the gray area exists now, and this goes back to the problem we've had all season. I saw a really good tweet from Looney, head coach, one of the coaches in Minnesota ROKKR, about combo with the M4 issue early in the season, the sniper GA, stuff about Fortress Control. I don't know what other GAs or concepts have been this season. There's been a lot. I think Dan's tweet about that in general, sort of there's been this mind kind of shift on the pro community, where back, I guess, in the good old days of World War II, people were thinking about the game, and now people are thinking about their spots, and everything has become too political. And when these GAs or these decisions need to happen, it becomes a giant clusterfuck. Like, do you kind of agree with Dan's assessment in this tweet?
So yeah, he says pros back then cared about making COD the most competitive it can be. That was our goal. Nowadays, pros care about what they have to do to keep their spot in the CDL. I mean, like in theory, yeah, like it should just be the most competitive stuff. Like obviously, you want the competitive integrity and you want to make the game the best it can be. I've said this time and time again. I don't think that's the fucking pro player's job. Like I really do feel like that's not supposed to be their job. I feel like it's crazy to like have it be their job even to the degree that it is now. But like even with that being said, I don't think a lot of people were playing COD. Or maybe Dylan, you can attest to this. I can tell you personally myself. When I was playing Call of Duty back in the day, you know, when we were all plumbers and mailmen, the whole joke of thing, like I wasn't expecting to be sitting here doing a podcast on a $25 million buy-in franchise Call of Duty League and it be my career in life. I was expecting to go to.
There was no money back then.
That's what I mean.
You won $5,000. You're like, yay! I won $5,000
so like,
before taxes too.
Yeah, that's like I really wanted to. Yeah, my first tournament was $2,500 per person win. Like I wanted
we weren't playing to make a living.
Yeah, so like I wanted it to be the most competitive it was, and I wanted it to be, you know, like that's what we all did. But like there wasn't millions of dollars on the line and my career and life on the line. Like yeah, I feel like the whole competitive integrity thing, I understand it, and it is definitely corny, but I mean, I think there's just a lot more at stake now, and I think back in the day, if there was as much as at stake and how serious it was, even being in the CDL right now is basically impossible. 12 teams of 4, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I just feel like that's just gonna be how it is. I think back in the day it would have been like that if this was the case. You know what I mean? So I just think it's like a different time with a lot of different stuff, and I think everyone can probably agree that money talks and everything. Like once there's a lot of money on this stuff and there's, you know, your career and your life and everything else that like you really want to like set yourself up for the future, I just don't think that's ever going to happen. And again, I don't think it's on the players to be doing this stuff. I just think it's a much different spot now. So it's like, yeah, obviously we should not be using auto tactical sprint. We shouldn't do this, all these GAs and stuff. But like, I mean, people are going to try and do that because they care about their lives.
If that's what's like needed to, like, if it's relying on the players and the teams to agree, like there's going to be personal bias every single time. I don't care what anyone says. People are going to want what works best for them. There's going to be very rare instances or few instances when people will actually do what's best. Because like you said, now it's a job, a career. You have one bad stage, one bad month of Call of Duty, you're out of a job forever. And depending on where you are and what player you are, you might not have a job in Call of Duty or esports ever again. So people are doing anything it takes to make sure they keep their spot. Because like you said earlier, like we just played for fun back then, and the money was just kind of extra because there wasn't a career you could be made off of it unless you won every single event and you got paid. And I think the salaries were like $500 to $1,000 a month. So it was just for fun. But now it's so much more serious that it's like you can't slip up about anything.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like people are trying to set themselves up for their future and like think about their lives, and that's just people are going to be selfish in that sense, regardless. And even like with the GAs and the map pools, and like, you know, should we GA this map? Should we let this map in? Like all the personal bias is always going to happen no matter what, and that's why I think it's really important. Eventually, or like hopefully, like again, a lot of these decisions should not be being made by a lot of the pros. Like I think they should be with the pros' feedback, but I think there should be people that a lot of people can trust to make like better decisions. And like, I feel like that's a more optimal way to have that done. I don't know. I just think it's a much different time now.
I agree, Chris. I think there was a period in time, especially during the MLG era, where even they were sort of almost a third party to an extent to Activision, even though they got acquired at one point, where I understand like they could defer to the pro players because they didn't have certain internal tools. But now with there being a franchise league, I just think on that conversation, the league's got to step up here and start creating a process to facilitate a more official way for these rulings to happen, for rules to be constantly adjusted, for items to be temporarily restricted, and to essentially like replace the GA process with something that's going to take a lot of the political issues out of play, a lot of the ugliness out of Twitter, a lot of the stupid ass votes in a Twitter DM out of play, and it becomes a process that's just more professional. I think we're at the point where it's gotta happen.
Yeah.
It's not really a question.
I,
So
yeah,
hopefully
no.
the league steps up because the ball's in their court. Otherwise, it's just every year now we're just gonna have the same shit where it's just gonna so there's gonna be an OP gun, broken
Well-
map. Everybody's gonna complain on Twitter. It's just the same shit over and
Certain
over.
teams are going to want it
Yeah.
in. Certain teams are going
Yeah.
to want it out. And then it becomes a whole big drama. It's like a repeating cycle. We've seen it with snipers every year, different maps, different modes. Like there's always something that's going to happen and it's going to keep happening. Honestly, it's probably good for the community because they get more drama and entertainment. So they'd probably like that just to see being able to roast the pros and the pros roast the pros. But yeah, hopefully one day it will be more professional and they'll be like the pros giving feedback and then it going through a line of communication to where they're not the final decision, but
They're
there
a
needs to
big part
be-
of it. But
yeah, they're a big part of it, but like someone else makes the final decision with all their feedback who actually knows like what they're talking about and Call of Duty. Like it can't just be people that haven't been involved in the community
Mhm.
because especially with Call of Duty, the thing that makes it difficult is that the game changes every single year and who has the most time on the game played? The pros. So it's not just like it stays like the same game forever, which is the hard part of how can we trust these people to decide if they don't play the game that much where the pros play it all the time. So they should be the ones making the decisions. But then you see the personal bias. It's a whole thing that needs to get figured out one
Yeah.
day.
Well, what I'll say that, Dylan, is that there are a number of people at the league that aren't traditional COD people, but a lot of them exist in more backroom functions of the league, whether it's in marketing strategy, in finance, in the contractual progress, in sort of team operations, et cetera, et cetera. As far as like people I know in the league on the competitive side, you all know a number of them. They've been around for forever. Many of them have been around, and existed sort of during MLG or worked for MLG. So I think there are enough people over there who know kind of how COD works, know kind of where to get process from the players, how to manage the developer side of things, and create a really good infrastructure where these things could be discussed in an official environment. I agree with you. You don't want non-endemics in, but I think that on the league side, they have plenty of people that can help step in there that have been
Yeah.
around for a long time.
I think they can find a good system. I just think, I think something needs to be done just a little bit more. I like the drama, and I don't want it to be so professional where there is no drama. Like the arguments on Twitter and stuff are hilarious. Like that is a big part of the Call of Duty community. Like you
Yeah.
can't, like, as dumb as that sounds, it really is. But like, yeah, I do think it's not like, every player's job to figure this out. And with all the competitive integrity stuff, it's just, they're a completely different time. And as dumb as that sounds, because I mean, I'm on the side of like, we just shouldn't be using sound EQ. But at the end of the day, I mean, but like at the end of the
People
day,
are going
like,
to do it unless
I'm
there's
sure,
something
bro,
in place to take it out completely.
I'm sure there's players in the league that are using single tap to sprint, Dylan. I'm sure there's someone. Like,
probably.
Like, that's what I mean. Like, I wouldn't be surprised just because, like, how the fuck are you gonna prove that? That's my point.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that, like, I don't know, should be GA'd, and also not as much on the league either. With some of the stuff, it is on the league, but it's also just like a lack of developer support. Again, like, it's just, I mean, Call of Duty is obviously not in a very good spot with Warzone or CDL or anything in the sense of just like how the game actually runs, like where it could be better. But yeah, dude, like the developer is not really supporting the CDL multiplayer game, which is weird because I don't feel like they support Warzone either with some. So I don't know what the fuck's going on, but like it also hurts a lot with that too because there are a lot of stuff that can be fixed. And it takes about 7 months to fix it. And then by the time it's fixed, it's already like a little bit late. So like, I do think there's a lot of that too. Again, like I do feel it's kind of unfair to players to keep having this conversation and then obviously keep doing it over and over. I just feel like it's the same circle conversation over and over and over again. So kind of whack.
I agree. I think next step is just probably to look and see if they're thinking about it. Some more to come there. I think we should move on.
Yeah, we can.
This conversation, start talking about some of the matches this weekend. We had some interesting developments, and we're not just when we go just as a preference to everybody to watch this, like Florida, LAG, London, probably not going to talk about them much during the show, so apologies for fans of those teams, but there's just not a lot of, I think, interesting conversations for us to really have about them. But if they naturally come up, we'll cover them. But I think we're going to cover more of the teams that are likely going to make champs at this point. So as always, we start with your team, Chris. Another interesting weekend, as it seems always with your team. You guys start off the weekend with a very clean victory over the Los Angeles Guerrillas. Won a Fortress Hardpoint, which is nice to see. And then you guys squared up with OpTic for like the umpteenth time this season, and it didn't go your way. It was another 3-0. I think my first question to you is sort of after your team sort of reflected on that loss, like where are you guys now with that matchup and sort of in general your progress that you guys have made in the last like 6 to 8 weeks for their team?
Well, I don't think we beat LAG cleanly. I don't think LAG is a very good team, to be honest with you. I think they could be good. I don't think they're like, again, I think they're chalked mentally. I think they're like, you know what I'm saying? They're not in a good spot. They're not playing the best they can. Yeah, like, so I as much as like I guess we played I don't think we played that first hardpoint cleanly, like at all. Like, I don't know. I mean, I've said this so many times, and it sucks going on this show and like having to keep it so like, you know, like just like so fucking brief, because obviously you know I would love to deep dive into this more, but like, yeah, I mean, we just don't play hardpoint like fundamentally correct, and it's not something where it's like we're not trying to fix it, because we are. It's like we're, you know, it's obviously very evident when you watch the minimap of our team play. Like, I mean, I feel like it's pretty obviously what you can see going wrong, but like for some reason we still keep doing it. And like, so again, it's like we have to keep trying to fucking stop having these issues pop up in matches and all this stuff. Like even the LAG thing, like, yeah, we looked a little bit better at hardpoint versus LAG because we won it. And then we played OpTic and we somehow got 170 points with some of the mistakes we were making. But like OpTic, if you just watch the way they play and then you watch the way we play, like we're never going to beat them. Or any it's not even just an OpTic thing, by the way. Like it's any good hardpoint team right now, we're not going to play well, or it's going to be very hard to win unless someone has a crazy game, because the kills that we are getting and the stuff that we were doing is literally hurting. You know, like it's just not fundamentally correct. We're just playing shit God. And until we stop doing that, like it's going to be very hard. So like, yeah, the OpTic matchup's annoying because we're not playing very well against them. And they're playing very well as a team. I think they're a great team right now. They look fucking insane. But like, yeah, it's just as plain as, you know, as honest as I can be without going too deep into it. Like we just need to stop making the mistakes that we are making, that we know not to make. It's like we know not to make and we've addressed it, but it's just like continuously happens. So we just have to keep going at it and figuring it out and trying to, like, you know, find better ways for these not to happen. Like it's not just something where we're like, oh, we're just going to keep trying the same thing and hopefully for a different, like we're not hoping for a different result. Like we're trying to like figure out other ways to like avoid these things happening. And again, it's very possible our scrims do play better slightly in matches, but I'll even say to that, like a lot of the times, like in scrims, like you get away. Like if you keep handing people golden tickets to fucking beat you in matches, you're gonna fucking lose them. And especially against teams like OpTic, LA Thieves, any team with like a respawn dominant, like, you know, like you're gonna hand them opportunities to beat you, and they're gonna take it, they're gonna run with it, and they're gonna dominate it. Like if we, like the way we played versus LAG, if you did that same exact match, in my opinion, the way we played, like, you know, and put OpTic there, the OpTic would have beat us that day too. Like we made a lot of mistakes in that LAG match too, that like if we spawn Shotzi behind us, he's gonna wreak havoc on us. You know what I mean? Like this stupid shit. So we just have to, again, keep trying to find a way to like make these mistakes not happen. But it is definitely very frustrating as much as I'll go into it. I can't deep dive any farther than that, but it's just what it is at this moment.
Do you mind if I ask a follow-up question? There's just a lot of community discussion in our team about that they think it's a personnel problem, that they think that MC moved to a main and that maybe your issue is for the MC Austin combo. Do you think that's a problem, or do you think, again, to your point, it's more executional communication sort of issues and not a personnel problem?
I don't think it's a personnel problem to the degree that people are making it out to be. Like there's definitely ways where we can activate MC a little bit more, like obviously in his flex role and like try and get MC, like Austin into the main. Like I've seen people talk about that, but like as much as people want to deep dive into some of that stuff and like, you know, all that, you know, like all the things that people like to talk about. Like there is a very big problem right now with, and all 4 of my players know this. Like this is not something where I'm like on this, you know, like like we've talked about this. We're like, we need to stop doing dumb shit, and we need to like, and like period. It doesn't matter who's on the map. Like if you know, if all 4 of you spawn up and 4 push out and like try and trap a team, and you know you leave the back spawn open hypothetically, what the fuck happens when you get all those kills? You know what I mean? Like if we don't play discipline COD, no matter what, like it doesn't matter who's on the map. Like we have to just be flat out smarter than the way we've been playing. And if we're not, it's gonna hurt us a lot. Like I'm very handcuffed to what I can really say without, you know, going crazy, because we're still in a very good chance to have a chance to win these next 2 events if we can get it there. But again, we have to fucking get it there, because we are playing some of the worst version of Respawn that we can to like help ourselves like play better. And that's also why you see like stat lines, you know, happen. If you're spawning on the gate side of Fortress the entire fucking time, you're gonna have players on your team getting fucking bodied.
Oh yeah,
you see
window.
That's my point. Like, bro, I think half of the time on that OpTic match we were spawning P3 gate side, and Dash, you know what I'm saying? Dash, you sitting there top. Yeah, that's just my point. Like, you're gonna get fucking bodied if you play the Call of Duty wrong and you spawn yourself there all the time. Like, you're gonna get shit on. Like, it doesn't matter who you are. So that's my point. Like, we're playing such a shit version of Respawn. It just never. It's just like it's brutal. So we have to stop doing it. We've talked about some of the plays that we have to stop doing, and like they still keep coming up. So like, again, just have to try a different way to assess it and figure it out.
Okay. Well, you guys have, I would say, in my opinion, a fairly easy schedule coming up. So I think there's maybe some protection there, but I think to your point, definitely doesn't seem like you guys are playing your A+, but there's 3 more online matches. You have Toronto and then a couple of weeks after champs, and you guys are still sitting in number 1 spot. So, and a good chance to lock in a number 1 seed depending on how you guys play over the next, 3 weeks?
No, we can figure it out. I'm very confident we can figure it out, but it is very frustrating on the other side of things that we haven't yet. And I think a lot of it is very basic. So we just have to get to the point where we start doing that more. So it's just, we'll see how things go. Again, no one's really lost full in the sense of like, you know, mentally chalked or anything like that. It's just, we just got to keep working at it. It sounds like a very PR response, I guess, but I'm only gonna say as much without like kind of just like opening up too much for that. But yeah, it does.
Well, let's talk about the OpTic side of it. They had another also interesting weekend. Like they beat you guys, but I would argue they probably should have lost to Vegas. Vegas found a way to lose that series. We'll talk about Vegas in a sec. OpTic, this split is doing something that I felt like your team, Chris, started doing a lot of Modern Warfare 2019. I think Ray was doing it with Empire as well with Clay and Krim, of like, you get to this point of the season, you know your team is good, you have a couple of weak maps, so going into the final kind of stage of the season, you start playing some of those weaker maps in matches. And for OpTic, weirdly enough, for their team, it's been Embassy Hardpoint, Embassy Search is starting to play more. Like, obviously, Dylan, I want to go to you. You know, having been on teams that maybe have tried this, like, you tip that strategy, they feel confident they can, even if they lose the maps, they can win the series?
Yeah, I 100% tip that strategy, and I think it's what you should be doing if you want to actually win. When you're not doing that, that means you are usually in a spot where you need to win those matches just to get to the champs or get to a certain tournament, start in winners. But to take teams from like a good team to a great team, like the FaZe'S, the OpTics have been, the Empires the past couple of years, you need to expand your map pool if you really want to have a chance to win, because you can get there to the finals and then you just get slammed because you aren't good at certain maps. And of course, people want to be good at maps and you scrim them all day long, but scrims don't always transfer the matches. Sometimes you can lose a map a lot in scrims and you'll win it in a match a couple times. Sometimes you can win a map every single time in scrims and then you can lose it when you get to the match because you're just not doing things fundamentally correct. So I think that's necessary if you want to be a consistent championship caliber team, to just keep improving. Because if you don't try and improve all the maps, it's going to lead you to just a tough decision down the line when you're at a tournament if you want to play a certain map you're not uncomfortable with or another team's best map. So I think it's necessary to do that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Chris, I don't know if you have any other thoughts.
No, I mean, I agree. I think that method is exactly what they should be doing. They're a top 2 team right now, right? They look incredible. Like, they need to open up their map pool here and there to play some maps for certain teams and stuff. So I think the route that they're going is really smart. And I think they should obviously keep trying to well round themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I agree because I think when you think about especially teams like Thieves, for example, I think they need to, they've lost them a couple times now. I think rethinking the map strategy against that team is maybe driving some of the embassy stuff. So I tip it from OpTic. They're probably going to make winners at this event. They've got Vegas. Rather, I'm looking at your schedule. OpTic upcoming here. They have Seattle, Toronto, and Florida. So I think they're beating Florida, and 2 and 3 should probably get in.
Yeah, they're
going to beat Seattle or
winners.
Toronto. So I mean, Seattle. Well, we'll get to Seattle next, but obviously make winners. They're obviously thinking ahead. I think the last hurdle for OpTic, in a weird light, and I don't mean this to disrespect the OpTic fans, I don't really have much to say on their team because I think the last thing for them, they've been good now for a while. They've been on that hard point streak. They've been getting better at search, getting better control. It's now just like getting it done in a final. So let's see if they can win Toronto or champs because I think they're well positioned to be a betting odds favorite for both those games. But a team that I think has fallen completely to the wayside of the champs conversation, and even though they're going to make it to the event, I think we got to kind of say, are they frauds, unquote, which is Seattle Surge. They played Toronto this weekend and they looked lost. I think that, and I want to put myself as blame here. I think we've been giving Seattle a pass since Major 1 because we knew how good of a team they were last year. They won an event. They were competitive at champs. They continued that in Major 1. We're like, okay, sometimes teams have up and downs. It is what it is. But since Major 1, they have not played well. They've especially not played well at LAN since that event. I believe the only team they beat at LAN at any event since Major 1 is LAG. And the way that they lost out of Major 4 with the reverse sweep to ROKKR was not particularly good. And they looked lifeless against Toronto. And look, I know that in that series, Pred got home. I actually talked to Pred and he had got home. It was like family stuff. So it wasn't even like I'm going on vacation. Like he had to go deal with stuff. So they were kind of under practice going in that series, but still obviously we're getting to like May. Are you guys really worried about Seattle to get back to sort of the 8 tier S tier form, or is this kind of it? They're just sort of maybe hot in a given weekend, but likely more top 6, top 8. Dylan, we'll start with you.
Wait, was that true that they've only beat LAG on land since what?
Major
Since
1.
Major 1, is that really true?
Is that true? Because
they lost
like 6. They got like
Major
6
2
times.
Major 2, they started losers and lost to Boston.
Lost, yeah.
They beat LAG, lost to FaZe, lost to OpTic in Major 3. And then in Major 4, lost to FaZe, beat LAG, and then got reversed by ROKKR.
Oh, wow. I didn't even because they always placed like around 6. So I didn't think it was like that. I didn't realize they only have beaten LAG for multiple events. I think the reason that you even said like you were giving them a pass is because when they play at the tournaments too, they're usually the matches are all very competitive. I know Chris, they play against FaZe a lot. There was the Deddy hipfire cheese. That was the big thing going around. That round 11 loss versus FaZe. I think they choked that last series versus ROKKR really bad on the control in the S&D game 5. All their series seem like they're extremely close. So you just think, okay, they're right there on the cusp of winning and advancing and going further in the tournament. But there's something that like a spark that they're missing to just close series out or to just clutch up when they need to, because they're right there every single time. Like every event except for probably the Major 2 where they just got like slammed out of the tournament. They're right there being able to win that match and move forward, but it's just not. So I don't know what's really going on behind the scenes with that team to like if it's just like lack of confidence in each other or like what's going on, because even Lamar played really well last stage. I think he fried. So if like Lamar's giving you a stage like that and you know what you're going to get out of Lamar and he's giving you extra, you got to take that and run with it and do well at a tournament. And I don't know what their issue is, because Pred's been number 1 in all stats. Pretty much. Sib, I think he's like started off really hard and been frying. Still playing pretty well, but not up to his like standard, his MVP caliber standard. And
Where was that in Major 1?
Yeah, Lamar fried last stage, and then Mac had a pretty bad stage, I believe, and then made a couple of the big trolls that people were talking about in the match versus ROKKR. So I don't know what it is, if it's just like time ran its course on that team, but they're right there. They just need one thing to go their way, and I think they get it rolling. But I don't know if that's a system change or just kind of waiting for something to happen and hope for the best.
I think it's two things, and Chris, I want you to react to what I say. I think it's two things. One is I just think on paper there's not a good S&D team, and they've had sprouts where they've started to figure it out, but just in general, the way this team is built, when you look at the more elite search teams out there, like Chris, your team, I think OpTic started to get a lot better at search. Thieves, Toronto, like they just can't match the overall S&D decision making that's on those teams, and Seattle is very limited in the way they can execute in that game mode. And yeah, when it comes to respawn, especially early in the year when people are still learning the game, you could have a couple players hard carry with the system they play where, Lamar basically tells outside of certain flood situations, like you don't want Dante and Pred doing the dirty work. You want them out there getting kills. And so I think they have like this very narrow win condition window in terms of individual performance and teamwork. And when they're not in that window, this is what happens. I'm curious what you think about that, Chris.
I mean, I just feel like what Dylan kind of said. Like I know you just like said that to me, but like I feel like what Dylan kind of said, like it's like they're right there every single time. They lost a tough match to us. Like they're playing like they got reverse swept. Like they play close, but like the problem with them, maybe it's a system thing. If you really go back and like try and analyze like their game, like I do feel like their system is built around Sib and Pred doing what they do, and then obviously like Mac and Lamar try and make up for it to a degree. I don't know again how full on true like everything that it is. It looks like it like when they play, but like my thing with them as like close as they've been to winning these like these like certain matches and all this stuff, like they've been decent at respawn all year, like but like their search is so rough, and like the flat out truth of it is, yeah, they like Dylan, they might have it in there, like something might be going on behind the scenes, like they can still get it done, and I get that, but like their search is a major issue, and like if their decision, like I think search is a scary part sometimes, because a lot of the times the team's good or bad at search, it's usually the mid game decisions. You know what I mean? Like I feel like that's something that's like almost hard to teach. Like yeah, you've seen teams improve in search, but a lot of the times like that improvement doesn't always fully stay either. It kind of reverts back eventually, just depending. It's like really hard to keep that. Like S&D is a lot of instinct. We've talked about that. So like this team scares me because as good as they are at respawn, with how good Pred can be and Sib can be, and like Lamar's actually played pretty well, like here and there too. I know people give him a lot of shit. Like Mac's not been playing well. Like they're not better than some of the top teams at respawn though. You know what I mean? And I think if that team drops a hard point or a control, they're in for a long series, and like that's like where it becomes like really really like tough for them. So it's like that's why I feel like what Dylan just said, like they're always so close, but like right now they just keep falling a little short. I just think that mode for them is killing them, regardless of like if they've gotten a little bit better at it. It's just hard because I think any top teams playing each other right now, like their respawns are going to be good. And like, yeah, you might be able to take a respawn off OpTic, but then like they'll probably take the next two in a search off you. Then you get 3-1. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, it's the same kind of thing. So it's just they're just in a really tough spot with that game mode. And like, if they can't figure out that game mode, I mean, it's obviously too late to make a freaking change or something, but like, that's going to be like where they're going to have to try and figure it out. Like, I don't know, that mode should be like their priority, like, cause they can sneak out respawns here and there against top teams. They're not bad at that, but like even the reverse sweep, they go up 2-0, they lose 2 respawns. Yeah. I mean, bro, like every once in a while you got to win that game 5. Like, dude, a game 5 versus Seattle, like I feel like a lot of people, probably even the chat and you guys would say, it's just like, oh, the Seattle's kind of probably fucked. Like, you don't want to be in that position in game 5. You want to have like some sort of like hope. Like, I don't know. I just think like that's hurting their top team. Yeah, that's hurting their top team potential right now, is that like you're gonna have to scrap out some series, and like with how much they struggle in that mode, I just feel like it hurts them. So I don't know.
They have 4 wins, 6 losses in game 5s. There are 11 wins, 23 losses in game 2. So they're winning 32% of game 2s, which is like unacceptable. If we go into S&D stats, it's bad, Chris. They're obviously lowest at the bottom in win percentage. They only win 68% of the rounds where they get first blood, which is like near the bottom. I mean, I can keep going. First blood, win percentage on offense.
They're not very good at search.
They're one of the worst retaking teams in the league on defense. Like they just don't. Their situationals are bad. And look, like we get to the end of the season, you can't rely on just taking 3 respawns against people. It's just not going to work, and especially against better teams that are like really good at control. twin game mode, like you get effed, and I think I just don't know what Seattle can do at this point. And we were talking about in the last show. It's like they have Gwyn. Do you really think at this point that you try a Hail Mary roster change and bring him in to see if it works? Because I don't know what the downside of that is.
When's the last opportunity that you can make a roster change? Like, how does that even, like, what, like, is there a roster lock?
Is it the roster at Major 5? I know that's what I think it was last year.
I would love to tell you. I would love to tell
clue.
you, but in classic CDL form, there's no public document that says
that's probably...
here's the league guidance on how this works. So that's, if someone knows, please let me know, because I have legitimately no idea. But I think the Gwyn thing for me, I watch Challengers a lot. That kid's actually really nasty at search. So like, and I think you put him in for, say, Mac. Again, I don't know what happens to their respawn, but it might help their search, which is, I think, their main issue. But
I feel like
I'm raising my hand.
No, you're good.
No, you go first, Dylan. You go first.
I was just gonna say something quick. Like, I just don't think that respawn gets that much worse. And if it can really help SND that much, you just fuck it, try it.
Okay.
There's not like a deep thought process to it, honestly. In my opinion.
Listen, this is probably the first, like, no one's ever done this in the league, and I don't even know if this will ever happen. But like, why not just replace Mac? Or I'm not even saying it's Mac, for example. I don't know who their worst search player is. Again, I'm not like super deep diving into them. But like, all right, so I guess the way I view it, and maybe this is like a stupid perspective, because like, you know, players' money's on the line here, and like, you know, getting 8th place at champs or getting 2nd place at champs, you make a lot more money getting 2nd place, you know what I mean? Or first place, like, obviously, than you do 8th. But I do truly feel, and maybe this is just now me being a coach, like, they're both, no one gives a fuck if you got 2nd at champs, and no one gives a fuck if you got 8th. Like, you want to win champs. And like, if you feel like you don't have a chance of winning champs, I feel like taking the risk to try and win it sometimes is like even worth, like, you know, say instead of them getting, you know, consistently like 5th or 6th or something, whatever. I don't know like what their stats are. Like if they get 8th, like I think that's worth the risk is my point. You know what I mean? Like I don't think it really matters at that point. Like you're trying to do everything that you can to win champs. And if something's consistently not working, sometimes, you know what I mean? Like, so that's where like I'm at right now with this. Like, why not just replace like Mac with Gwyn for search?
So this has been tried before. First off, as you know, Chris,
not on land. That hasn't been tried on land.
They never tried on land. They did it online at some point during a home series in the beginning of the year, like model for 2019. It was after COVID. Or during COVID rather, when we went online. Hasn't been tried on land. We've obviously seen subs on land, but it was like the whole Alex situation in Major 3, and that was more injury or sort of perform, or like unable to perform.
They weren't bringing Marky B in to try and
that's what I'm saying. It's not like Marky B is coming in to be a search wizard. But I mean, look, to your point, Chris, like I agree. Like you either got, the way it works, you either got first or you got last. Obviously make a lot of money the higher place.
Like, I know that.
You want to go there and be a non-factor because that's where they're at right now, bro. Like I'm not picking Seattle. It's your team, OpTic, LA Thieves, Toronto, probably New York as well. I might even think that Vegas could beat Seattle because Vegas has gotten better at respawn, and I trust them in a game 5 more than Seattle. And suddenly, like, yeah, Vegas might not make champs, but Seattle's got a good chance to go to champs and get double round. And it's like, now we just wasted a whole season. We never won. We had one grand final at the beginning of the year, and then we just faded. I think you just gotta do something. And it seems like every time this comes up with the Seattle camp, it's like they live in fantasy la la land where people go on Twitter and act as if everything's hunky dory. And it's like they're not it right now.
See, yes, to a degree. Like again, like I feel again, like, as much as we're like, you know, ripping onto them, like I do think they have, like, again, like they are close. And I think like with what Dylan you said, like them being so close here and there is also like what's it's what's kind of keeping them there at the same time. Like it is a big risk to take where like if they can get Mac's confidence flowing or get him more activated, you know what I'm saying? Like they can become a whole different team. It's not like they can't turn it around. Like I'm not like completely just like throwing in the towel for them because that's not like where I'm at with them. I do still think like they have so much potential, and as consistently kind of like below their standard they've been this year, like they can turn around and figure it out. I mean, I use Thieves as an example plenty of times when they had the 0-5 major, blow it up, and then they went back-to-back events, and now, like, you know what I'm saying? Like now look at them. Like there's always the potential to do that and figure it out in the system, and there's so much behind the scenes stuff with that. So it's like I don't want to rip into them too much, but at the same time, like if they have been struggling at S&D for so much, like I don't know. I'm wondering who the first team's going to be to do something like that, and like
consistently too, not just like a
yeah, not
one-time
just a
thing.
one-off thing.
Like trying it for like a whole split. Like,
yeah,
like give it time to actually see it progress and see if it works or not and test it out.
And I know this sounds insane because I mean I came from old school Call of Duty. That would never happen back in the day. And even now,
no.
like even now, so many players' egos and like so many people's egos in general are just like so hard to like, you know, keep intact with something like that. So like that really does like kind of mentally shock a lot of things. But I do think to a degree, like I think you need to get the fuck over it sometimes and do what's best for the, you know what I mean? Like do what's best for the team to do that shit. So I don't know. Like I just feel like with them struggling with that stuff, and if this Gwyn guy is as good at search as, you know, like people have been saying he's been playing well in challengers, like I don't know, maybe that's something that's a little unorthodox, but I don't know.
I mean, here's the issue, Chris. They only had one match this weekend. They got stomped by Ultra. They play OpTic, Boston, New York, and Vegas. All 4 teams in the mix for champs. All teams playing good. I would say New York's probably the weakest S&D team, but they actually kind of improved their search this weekend. I mean, bro, I could see Seattle losing all 4. I'm very curious. It's Tuesday. I haven't heard anything about a roster change, so I assume at this point they're running it back with their same lineup, unless they've been keeping it quiet. But like, I don't know, man. If you go 1-4, 0-5 this split, like I feel like you got to do something.
Can you make a roster change like that? That's my thing with it.
Well,
like
that's the other piece to it too. Yeah,
like,
are they fucked now? Well, he's allowed a sub. Well, he's a sub though.
Oh, yeah. Matter, so it's not really a roster change. True. No,
that's they can't pick. Yeah. So like you'd be good now if they, in terms of adding someone else as a sub off of challengers. Now they may be screwed, but like that, you know. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see what they do because they're not in a great situation. A team. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say as much as they can go 0-4, I also see them. They can do well. That's like they're such a weird team. Yeah. But the problem is they haven't really
about them. Like on like this stage, I'm not really worried about them. With like these matches in the major, I was kind of thinking what Chris was saying, like more long term. Like, can they actually go to an event and win consistently? Like that's what they should be thinking. Kind of like the other teams who are in like a good spot. Of course, they still need to get points to qualify for champs, but I think they have the personnel on the team to where if things are going their way just because of one change in a certain mode, like they can make a run an event and win. So I think they'll still do fine in these online matches and stuff, but I think they need to think a little long term.
I actually am worried because the problem is they're in the 6th spot right now. New York's at 235 in the 5th spot. They're at 180. They're not catching up to New York.
Okay.
The problem with being in 6, 7, and 8 is you're going to play Atlanta FaZe, OpTic Texas, and probably either Thieves or Toronto round 1. The champs. They're not beating one of those teams right now. Well, you're gonna go to losers, and you're in a one and done situation. So yeah, that's why I'm worried because it's like you can't just kick the can to champs because you're going to have an extremely tough matchup against 4 teams I've named that are all good in S&D. Obviously, those teams other have situational matches where maybe you can beat them in respawn, but game 5, I'm not favoring Seattle against any of those teams right now.
I mean, that's a long way away.
Well, that's what I said. They should be focusing for the long term because they're probably going to make champs unless something crazy happens. Yeah. So they need to focus on the search and destroy long term changes, and they need to make the changes now. They just can't really worry too much about these upcoming matches and the major. Like they need to use this time to improve for champs.
Well, here's the other thing though, and I'm actually going to take this a step further. They're on 180. Boston's on 170. ROKKR's on 160. Vegas is on 140. I would say they have a 20-point advantage on 8th right now. They could 100% blow that. What if they don't win any of these matches? Boston and ROKKR and Vegas do well. Suddenly you go from 6th to 8th. And instead of ROKKR being the team that's got to fight with Vegas to outplay them at this event, it's Seattle. And you might start in losers. And if you get 0 points this entire split, you might have gone from, at one point they were a top seed for champs like at the beginning of the year to going to Cancun. Like that's a fucking disaster.
It is. But I just don't think, like, I think they'll be able to win a match or 2 after this because there's a lot of things that happen. A lot of different scenarios can happen, but I think they're going to win a match or 2 after this. And even if they do stick and they go to this major, they're probably getting an 8th or a 6th. And so, like, they will be good, but they need to get the long-term fixes in now and try to see some improvement for here, and then also for champs if they really want to make a deep run and have a chance of making a ring or getting a ring.
And I also just think like, dude, like it is so easy for like you to sit there, Ben, and like so many people like to sit there and like criticize that, and like as correct as your point can be, you know, oh, like they can go 0-4 and get out of champs and like let's all fucking panic and explode. Like at the end of the fucking day, like there are some things that they can take, like some risks, like calculated risks and what we talked about potentially, but like you can't just mentally explode and freak the fuck out and just like that's what would cause them to go 0-4. And like, you know what I mean? Like obviously the long term, what Dylan said, they're probably gonna have a pretty tough matchup around one of champs. Like that doesn't mean like as a competitor and as like a pro player, and I'm sure Dylan, like you can even agree to this, like you can't just mentally freak the fuck out and like do that either, because that's worse than like, you know what I mean? Like there's not a lot of things they can do. They can't make some crazy fucking roster change outside of like kind of like a few things we said, like the whole like let's hit the panic button and everyone just lose complete composure and chalk the rest of the season is also like a shitty mentality to have. Like
it's not what I'm saying, Chris. What I am saying though is we've already seen a split this season where they've gotten 10 points, and like we saw last year that like
it's doable to do bad. Yes,
Vegas, and we haven't gotten them yet. Like the way Vegas is playing now, it's not impossible for them to get a decent placing at this event, and Seattle at 180 is not even remotely close to being 100% confirmed for champs. They're likely going to make it. They are more likely than not, barring collapse, going to make it. But I do think like there needs to be some self-reflection of the situation that they're in, which is they're spinning the wheels. They've shifted from, at one point, I personally thought that they were like a top 4, top 5 team in the league. I was still waiting for the search to get better before I'm like, okay, these guys with FaZe and Thieves and a bunch of other teams are going to be there. And now it's like, well, it's like what I thought of Boston last year, which is like, congrats on making champs. Unless Pred is doing what he did last year, where he's just winning Tuscan hard points by himself single-handedly, like you're likely going to be there and be out of there by Friday night.
No, I know what you're saying. I that's what I mean. I see your point. I'm sure they have done, some self-fucking reflection and trying to feel like I'm sure they're doing that. And like, I mean, dude, they have to try and figure some stuff out, and maybe they want to take that risk with like what we were saying. Like, you don't really want to just go to champs and get fourth. You know, you want to kind of go to champs and compete, or have a chance of winning, and like that's worth the risk. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure they've done that. They just have to, figure it out and like just get better. It's like they're in like a pretty tough position right now. Like, of course you want to compete to win. So I get your point, but like, yeah, like I'm sure at the same time they're not trying to fucking just panic and freak, and then like just blow it all up. Like. I don't know.
I doubt they're panicking. I'm just trying to set the conditions of what the thought process is. Let's
I'm sure they're not stupid.
Yeah, I'm sure. Lamar's been around for a long time. Like, and that I'm curious to see what they do, because they and now looking at it, have a very difficult schedule. Vegas is sort of another team that's sort of, I think, sitting in a interesting spot. And I think in a better mentally, I feel better for Vegas. There is a role where they probably should have gone 2-0 this weekend. They really battled hard with OpTic, and it's one of like first match of the split, like getting back in the things, like weird shit can happen. But Vegas was a very winnable series, and for a good search team, they made some unfortunately questionable decisions in Game 5 that kind of cost them that series. But they had a really good rebound against New York where they were able to get it done. So they're 1-1, and what they're dealing with a very difficult schedule right now. And I think the goal is to try and get winners bracket, because it makes your ability to get CDL points going to be a lot easier, because they got to catch up to people. What do y'all think of Vegas? If you could rank them right now, 1 through 12, starting with you, Chris, where would you put them?
I have to see them play on LAN and do it on LAN. I thought they looked incredible before Major 4, and then they like showed up to Major 4. And for me with them, again, I do think they looked way better, and like I still believe that they can very easily still do well and make this run. Like I do have faith that that's possible. I just also had the same faith before Major 4, and I feel like when we showed up to Major 4, they didn't look very good in scrims either. Like going into Major 4, like on LAN, so it was just very weird to me to see like such like a switch up. And as much faith as I do think they like can do this, and like I do have a lot of respect to those guys on the teams, like it's more or less like seeing them do it now on LAN and stuff. So like I think they can play this split pretty well. Like I think that I'm not really worried about the split there. I just want to see them show up and do their thing, you know, when like at Major 5 when it matters. So it's like I think right now they're very easily a top 8 team when they're playing good. I think like they can even compete higher than that, but it's more or less than like making that winners bracket again and then doing it. So it's like they're a question mark for me, but like we'll have to kind of see. It's the Major 4 was like really like just a confusing thing to watch happen because it wasn't even just like they underperformed in matches. Like we scrimmed them. I don't think they looked very good in those scrims either. You know what I mean? Like it was like weird. I feel like it was like kind of odd to me. And I'm not saying they get worse on land, but like something didn't click fully. So I want to see it click fully like more when they get to Major 5.
Well, since Chris gave me a non-answer, congrats to you for that.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm saying top 8. I mean, I think they're top 8, fifth, sixth when they're playing good. That's
right now.
Dylan, I'm curious
right
your
now
thoughts.
because I'm gonna split it up in between online and LAN. Because online, I'd probably say minimum top 6. So let's say let's give them like the 5th spot online right now because they push OpTic the distance, which honestly not many teams have done online. It could have been just first match. Both teams getting warmed up. Vegas probably should have won that series. At least in the game 5, and then they came out and they won their next series versus a tough team as well. So like that's pretty impressive. So online they are playing really well and really good. And I'm not just saying they're only good online because I was high on them going into the last LAN. And the reason that we all just got to see it happen is because they not only got slammed by New York on LAN, they were up like 5-2 versus Florida game 5 and it ended up choking that, which was a huge match for their champs qualification, their champs hopes, and that might come back to bite them in the ass because now they have to absolutely fry online. Now they need to go to the next LAN and do really well, not just good and get like a top 6, but they probably need to get like a top 4-ish right there. So online, I think they got everything figured out pretty well, and that was their first event as a team together, correct? Those 4 on LAN?
Yes, that was their first LAN.
Yeah.
Okay, so like they were playing well online. They went to the LAN. I still have faith in them to go do well at LAN, but they're gonna need to put it together quick. So right now, I just couldn't rate them that highly. It's like more so a question mark, but they'd be like 7th or 8th right now on LAN, or probably like 8th right now.
Yeah, that's kind of the reason I was gonna ask this question though, because like I feel the same way online with these players.
I'm confident them in line. Like I'm confident. I know watching a Vegas match. Sorry to cut you out. I know watching a Vegas match online, like they're gonna give us a good series.
Like they play Chris's team next week. Like I think FaZe is winning that. But the ROKKR Seattle matches afterwards, I think Vegas have a really good shot against both teams. ROKKR's S&D is questionable, and Respawn can be pushed, and Vegas has really improved their control. I think they've won both controls they played so far online, which I can't remember the last time that's happened. And then Seattle, who we just talked about. So Vegas can go in this LAN gaining 40 points on teams like Seattle and Boston and ROKKR that might drop a few. And to your point, top 4 might be able to do it. They may, like New York last year. Unfortunately, if those teams kind of also step up, they might have to be in a position where they need to make a final, which is going to be difficult. So I'm really curious to see. I mean, they're going to have to. They either do it or everybody's going to the Caribbean after the event, and that's that. So
we'll see. We'll see. Because like even Clay said it in the interview, like we play up and down to our competition. So they could realistically play against FaZe, push them the distance, maybe even win, and then spawn in versus a team that we don't see as good as the FaZe'S, the OpTics, and then lose to them. So they just need to come out in every match like it's their last and give it their all. So they're going to be a fun team to watch for sure.
Yep. Well, let's move on. We're going to talk about 2 teams that played 2 matches but had kind of went in different directions. Let's start with Thieves first. Obviously, they won the last LAN event. They're locked in for champs. They're going to get a top seed. And a bit of a slow week for them. They played Toronto and New York, so they played 2 good teams, I would say.
Yeah.
And lost both series, I would say pretty much because their search was just sort of not there this weekend. They had a lot of the same issues they have had when they've struggled this season, which is first bloods, troll 4v3s. And so the 4 map loss versus Toronto, the game 5 loss, which they were really not in it against New York on a silo in that game 5. Is that just one bad weekend of S&D for Thieves, or do you think this is more of like a ultra major 4 situation where they might really have an S&D problem this split and need to figure it out? Chris, we'll start with you.
I mean, their search and destroy is always weird because like I feel like they've struggled more than they have not throughout this team's history. You know, like I feel like every time they don't do as well as they'd like to, I feel like a lot of the times it kind of gets pinned on like their S&D kind of looking a little trolly. And then they'll come out though, and their S&D will look great. And then they'll like be a well-rounded team, and then they look dominant. You know what I mean? And then it's like, oh shit, like this team's fucking insane. So it's like it's hard to put like a full like I don't think this is like an S&D struggle. Because I do think that this is like one of the teams that like weirdly can fix their S&D like kind of overnight. They've done it before, so like it's hard to say they won't do it again. But yeah, I mean, I just think their S&D looked like shit. I feel like a lot of like some of their situationals were kind of just like kind of trolly. I think they can fix that within literally a week, and like they can come back next week and be fine. I wouldn't say this is a full like Toronto stage where like they were like playing really really bad in S&D. We'll have to kind of wait and see. Right now, I think they're fine. I think they had a tough weekend against two tough teams, and hopefully that's all it is. And then I think if that's the case, then like they'll be good. But they're a weird team with that because they're like the few teams that like kind of go against like what I've said, where like the instinctual stuff like usually like kind of reverts back to it. Like they do, but like then they also kind of fix it sometimes. And I think their issue with Search of getting those first bloods and then like kind of falling short is a better issue to have than just like being miserable at S&D in general. So that's why I think maybe that's why maybe that's why they're better at like fixing their search like overnight. So I don't think it would be like a full S&D struggle for like the entire major. I think it's just something where like they got to convert some of their advantages better and they'll be fine. So I think they're good. I wouldn't be super worried.
Dylan, they play their last 3 matches because they played 2 this weekend are Florida, ROKKR, London. Do you agree with Chris that they're going to figure it out based on that schedule?
Yeah, I don't think it's too much they need to worry right now. I think if they do bad in their next couple matches, okay, they need to worry because they are playing teams they should 100,000% win against and win pretty convincingly. Because I think we going in and after last event, like Thieves is a top 2 team. I think they're one of the most coordinated teams. Like their teamwork is just on point. Might have been a hiccup from this weekend, but I think they'll be fine moving forward. But if they do lose the next series, it would be a little sus for sure. And they need to lock it back in. But I still think for now, you call them the best team in the game because they proved it at the tournament. And I think they're going to bounce back the rest of the matches and start on winners.
What was their record online as well last split?
4-1. They actually played really well.
4-1? They were 4-1?
Yeah.
Okay.
They only lost to OpTic 3-1. That was only lost.
They were 3-2 in search the last split online. So like their searches were still like weird.
50-50-ish.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it's like, but they're like, but in general though, like still, like I was just wondering. I wasn't gonna like go and say like, oh, it's just an online thing for them. But like, yeah, I was just curious. But yeah, I think they're fine. I think their problem in S&D is much more fixable than a lot of other teams that tend to struggle in S&D. So.
I have one more Thieves question. It's from Carlos on Twitter. I tweeted out for some questions, and I got an interesting one. I want to go to you, Chris, because you've coached Kenny before you won some chips. Ken's had I think, pretty mediocre to rough season. Overall numbers pretty much across all game modes for him are around the 0.95 or lower. And I know obviously we play in an era where it's a lot of online stuff. Like, what do you think it is with Ken that, obviously when they played good, he's played great. Like he was really good at times at the Major 4 LAN, but online has struggled. Like, what is your opinion of that?
I mean, I don't really think he's like struggling terribly. Like, I know he can play better than he is, but he's been running more of the sub role like all year, compared to like a little bit of both. Like in that sense, like I do think he tends to be a little bit inconsistent. Like, this year, like he has some maps where like he kind of finds himself in a blender. But I don't know. With Kenny specifically for me, like I don't think Kenny's struggle, at least when I watch LA Thieves play, I'm sure like their coaching staff can probably talk more about this. Like I think he understands Call of Duty very, very well. And I think he plays the game like very, very correct. And I think like even though he might have like, so right now throughout the entire year, he has a 0.93 KD. He has 21 kills per 10 minutes. Envoy has a 0.97 KD and 22 kills for 10 minutes. Like, that's not like some crazy fucking difference, but like,
the pace is there for sure.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I think Kenny and his struggles, like, I don't know. I think he's fine. Like, I think that guy makes the right play a lot of the times, and I think he does a lot of the stuff for that team that is really, really important. I mean, I don't know. I think people look at the stats and that stuff a little bit too much sometimes. Like, but at the same time, like, I don't know. Like, I think he's fine. Like, I've coached him, and I don't think he doesn't lose confidence. From when I coached him, he never lost confidence, even when he did play bad. Like, he was always a super confident kid, and like, he's one of the smartest Call of Duty players probably in the game. And the role that he's running and the way he plays, like, I think he's chilling. Like, I don't know. Like, he can't have like some of those maps that he's had, but
yeah,
I do think like, bro, so many teams, or maybe this is just like me looking at my team and like vice versa, but like so many teams, like even Toronto, like Hixie consistently has like a point like 8.5 to 0.9. And like they're really good at hardpoint. Like,
yeah,
it's not about just like dropping like some crazy numbers. Like, it's about playing the game fundamentally correct, and then playing with your team and being a good like that's so much more important. I think Kenny's fine. I don't know.
What I would tell people is if you go look at the stages where they're playing well or the lands where they're playing well, Ken's dropping numbers like last major. I think we didn't talk about it on this show, but I think I talked about it on my stream. Like, bro, before they went to LAN. At last major, I think pretty sure that Ken was like statistically one of the best players online in those 5 matches. Like he has played not hard point, but like especially in control when they were playing all those Astilos, like he was going off the searches. He was doing really well along with draws. Like
actually,
I think at times, yeah,
he was. I'm sorry, I'm mistaken. By the way, my bad.
Okay, but I think like at times, you know, when they do lose or you know like this weekend, I don't think he played well in either match. I think he kind of actually got fried, but you know, it happens. I was just curious in your thoughts because I know that like I've talked to Cap and Shane, like Ken is one of those like first guys in, last guys out, you know, like he comes in, has a lot of ideas. He's part of the conversation. He's engaged like their tactical system and the way they play. Like he's providing a lot of thought into that. And yeah, like he doesn't play like the featured role in this team. And like, it's not going to be always easy to just drop 1.5s.
I mean, bro, they're 42 and 26 in hardpoint and 27 and 15 in control. I think it's just fucking fine. Like that's what I feel. I feel like people just make up topics to talk about because it's fun to fucking talk about shit. Like
there's no issue.
That's what I mean. Like, what are we fucking talking about here? Like, yo, because like Kenny's not dropping 1.5. Like,
this is a classic Chris response to when I bring a Twitter question. It's fun.
Well,
that's funny whenever you respond like that.
I mean, like, for fuck's sake, like.
But it's true though. How much better do you want them to be? Like, of course.
How much better is better?
How much better is better? How much better can you get? Because they're definitely up there in control and respawn across the whole year. Like, how much better can they actually get?
Like, when like the Kobe
teams, they have an amazing system. So like, when I see Envoy or Kenny dropping a 0.9 or like anyone draws it, I'm like, I think when I watch them, I think they have the best teamwork by far in the game when it comes to across all modes. I think their teamwork is the best.
100%.
And it's been the best for a couple stages. And like,
and at the end of last year,
numbers, their KDs don't matter because of how they play in their system. And if you look at the team stats of like their overall success of the team, they got second, they got first. They're one of the best hardpoint and control teams in the game. So like, we're just trying to make people are trying to make a conversation out of nothing because they've been very successful. So like, why try and change it up when like it's clearly working?
People are literally just bored. Like literally like how much fucking better do you want them to be? Like, you know what's funny? If Kenny probably had a 1.2 and like he was doing that shit, they would probably be significantly fucking worse. No bullshit. Like if he was playing,
someone on the team's probably getting fried.
Bro, if he was playing at that fucking level to fucking have like a 1.2 all the time and like be this fucking crazy slayer, basically how he played in World War II. If he still played that reckless fucking role and didn't think and just ran forward and didn't give a fuck about anything else in the map and everyone had to play around him, they would probably be a 50-50 hardpoint team instead of a 42 and 26. Like,
it'd be like Seattle is this year.
Well, yeah, Seattle's hardpoint's not 50-50. But yeah, I know what you're saying. Like, that's my point. Like, bro, like, people just, I mean, this isn't, not everyone's fault. I mean, people just don't understand Call of Duty. Like, it's just not as simple as like, oh, he had the 0.9, they must suck. Like, it's just not that. Like, sometimes like you can struggle, but like, dude. I mean, bro, I'm looking at
you have to look at the bigger picture. You have to look at the bigger picture don't just look at the first person. You gotta get some different point of views of everything, and then you'll really understand it. Like you could talk about their team record. You're like, holy shit, these guys have been frying. Don't change anything.
Yeah, dude.
Bro, it's common to me because like again, I stream during the day. You guys know I just sit there and bullshit a lot. Like, and it's so funny the last like month and a half, so many people come in the chat and be like, "Oh, Thieves should next season drop Kenny for Pred." And it's just like, okay, well, you're just like chasing this high of more kills, but just to your point, Chris, is not how it works. Like, part of why their teamwork is so good is the player composition, and Ken is an important part of that piece. And he doesn't need to drop a 1-2 them to fucking win. And by the way, they just won. So it's like, I get you guys' response to the question. I appreciate you guys responding that way in classic Dylan fashion and classic Chris fashion. I think we can move on, and everybody, I think the sum of the conversation is Ken's playing fine. Had a tough weekend, is what it is.
How many fucking years have to go on with competitive Call of Duty until people can just like realize that? I like.
People are never gonna realize it, Chris. You're fighting a losing battle, brother.
I know I am. But like, dude, it's even like, bro,
It's not
just like
gonna
one
happen.
thing, like just Toronto picked up Hixie. Toronto picked up Hixie in stage 3, right? They dropped Standy after match 1. They picked him up. That's like when they picked him up. Hixie and Hardpoint, since that moment, since they picked him, has a 0.9 flat with 20 kills per respawn, which is basically the same as Insight.
Yeah.
So he's I'm not, and this is not me like taking a shot at Hixie. This is like yes, those stats to the fucking public eye, probably people think he sucks, or like again, like they say, but like I think since they've picked up Hixie, their hard point has looked great.
They won an event. It worked out.
And bro, and since that moment, listen to me.
Yep.
Since that moment, they picked up Hixie. They are 22-11 and 15-5 in control. Should they just drop? Should they just drop Hixie and pick up someone that can get more kills? Like, bro, like,
I mean, that was the reverse Eli argument because Eli was getting plenty of kills and they were winning.
That's what I mean, and that's not even a shot at Eli. Some people just don't mesh. Yeah. That's a thing. But like,
I mean, that's just a chemistry thing.
If you spawn, for example, use my team just really quick. If you spawn on the gate side of fucking Fortress for 7 of the 10 minutes that you play the fucking map, and you're getting spawn trapped because you're playing shit Call of Duty, and you're not like, and again, you're putting yourselves in positions because you're fucking playing dumb. It doesn't matter if you're fucking Pred or me. You're dropping a .6. Like people are staring at gate. It doesn't matter who the fuck comes out of that gate. Like if Dashy's staring at the gate and Pred comes out of that with a sub who is 8 times more talented than I'll ever be, we're both fucking dying. Like it's my point. Like bro, like playing the game correctly and setting yourself up and putting yourself in advantageous positions is how you win, and not being fucking dumb. Like Kenny's 0.9 and struggling. Like fuck off, bro. That's what I have to say to that question. Fuck off.
Well, let's move on. We're gonna go a little rapid fire with these next couple segments, and we'll talk schedule and take some questions. Let's continue the convo. Talk about Toronto. Obviously, last split was fucking interesting. Just up and down. Church wasn't there. They somehow got like top 6 in the event, and I talked to Scrab afterwards. He's like, whatever. So they came in with some passion. This split, obviously, they're hosting this next event in Toronto, so you know. They want to play well at it and had good victories against LA Thieves and Seattle. And I think they looked great across all game modes this weekend. So my question, starting with you, Dylan, just a 3-word question: are they back?
Yeah, I kind of said they were back, or knew they were going to be back after the last major 4, when like they went there in losers and made a little run and got a couple match wins under their belt. So yeah, I think they're back. I think they'll be just fine.
Chris, what do you think?
I think they're good. I think they're fine too. I mean, they were struggling a little bit in S&D. That was about it. They fell short, is what it is. I think they're fine. I didn't even like worry about them even at major 4. You know what I mean? Like they fell short. Shit happens. I think they're completely chilling.
I mean, they played.
I think they're back. Yeah.
They played great this weekend. The only map, if I recall, that they lost was the one where Scrap dropped like 40 something.
Was it 43 or something? Was it more?
Something crazy like that. Yeah.
Something stupid on that. But that's like a first map Fortress. Like outside of that, I thought in Control they looked good this weekend. The searches were, from what I remember, it was 2 embassy searches. Like they looked really clean on those. So yeah, I mean, I feel really good about Toronto coming into this event. They have remaining OpTic, which is going to be really interesting. LAG and ROKKR. So I would not be surprised if Toronto goes to this event with one of the top seeds at home and makes it very deep on Sunday.
Fully agree.
Cool. We got a couple of 1-1 teams to talk about. Let's talk about New York first. They obviously the way they lost Major Four, your team, Chris, and you said quote that you probably shouldn't have
We didn't
won
beat
that
them.
series to begin with. Because they just absolutely New York just absolutely tossed in S&D. They came in this weekend and looked actually a lot better in search. Like they were closing out S&Ds. They won 2 against LA Thieves. They won that in game 5. And they did lose to Vegas, but they actually won one of the searches on Mercado. And Vegas is a great Mercado search team. And the hotel was also a little bit mixy. So, yeah, like what do you guys think about New York? Similar to Vegas, you think they're like top 6, top 8, and it's pretty much down to, can they master the art of not throwing in search? Dylan, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I would say anywhere from like 4 to like the 6 range where I would consistently put them, just because they are up and down. But they did play a few good teams like Vegas. We talked about Vegas right now in their current form online. Like what, they're 5-1 or 5-2, 5-2, and their only loss being to OpTic. And then who they lose to that last split? Do you remember?
I can tell you.
You're talking about Vegas?
Vegas, yeah.
Yeah, I got it. Hold on.
Okay.
It's probably a really good team.
It was
They
London,
lost to
actually.
London.
Actually, never mind. It was a shit team.
Not a
Okay,
good, not a
that's
good
weird.
team.
That's weird. But like Vegas online, they're what, 5-2 total. So like they're
Yeah.
a really
They've
good
been
team
hot,
to go
yeah.
up against. Yeah, they've been hot. So like that's to push them to a game 5 is still good online, and then to beat LAT in 2 searches, I think that's really good for them. So yeah, I think New York is one of those teams that also can just randomly show up and absolutely fry and make a crazy deep run. It's just the consistency for them. That's where I'm worried at. Of like, can they consistently be competing to win events, or just like get hot for a weekend, make a run? I just want to see them do it more consistently and not have to, because I feel like they need the pop off performances. They need the Hydra 30s. I think Preston went crazy in one of the matches or one of the maps on Hydro, I believe, Hardpoint.
Yeah.
So like they just need the pop-offs, which is not always going to happen, and some more fundies to make them a top caliber team consistently.
Yeah. I mean, dude, their problem with them is like, yeah, I feel like they're always struggling in one game mode, like some way or the other. Like their controls throughout the year, if they don't play hotel control, they've been like, not when Fortress got taken out, like they've been like in a weird spot with that. And then I feel like last major, they played decent at control, if I remember correctly. And then like their searches, it's like they was tossing in search. And I mean, they tossed.
You want to hear a crazy search stat, Chris?
What?
So Shafi in my Twitter, I'm in my chat, and I haven't verified this, says that since
Nah,
Major 1,
yeah, that I'm pretty sure he'd be right, but yeah.
that New York Subliners on LAN are 1-10 in search.
On LAN.
That's an issue.
Yeah, that's an issue.
They've won 1 out of 11.
I will say
Yeah,
it's not good to win one match on LAN and search and lose 10. That's not good.
Yeah, no, that's
not it.
Expert analysis.
I'm almost the person that, if I'm thinking of the same person in the Twitch chats, like that's probably correct. But
yeah, no, Shafi's pretty good.
Yeah,
usually.
but yeah, I mean, dude, that's like, I feel like the online they like figure something out, and then like they'll look good in control, but then they're like, yeah, then they look bad on LAN and search or whatever. It's like I feel like they can't always get it all together, like obviously in a major tournament, and it's like weird. And I don't know what's causing that. Maybe it's like a fundamental thing, like what Dylan you said, like, or something of the sort. But it's like they have the potential, and I would give them like the 4th, the 6th, depending on like, which New York shows up in all 3 modes, because like you kind of get a search and control with them. You kind of get like a different team every once in a while, like when they show up. So you just never know. And then obviously, I guess on LAN too, like if that's the case, like yeah, on LAN they just don't show up and search at all, which is odd. I don't know, but like, yeah, that's just, if they can get it all together, they're a dangerous team. If not, then like they fall to that 6th place. So they just have to try and find like that consistency. But they do play the team that they have in general, they also do play a very weird play style to keep consistent, I would say. Like I feel like when I watch them play, yeah, exactly. Like I feel like the way they play in general is very risky, and like I feel like that's a big cause of like why they can be like so annoying to play against, but then also sometimes like what the fuck is going on type of thing. So it's like,
yeah,
maybe that's it. But yeah, no, I would give them anywhere from 4th to 6th. They have major potential, but like yeah, it's more. I feel like fundamentally that they're very risky. Like they take a lot of crazy fucking risks and chows and stuff, and sometimes like it wins them a game, and then sometimes it doesn't. So it's like yeah, they got to figure that out. But that LAN stat, they
just figure out the search then. Chalk everything else that we just said and just figure out LAN search.
At that point, LAN search. If they can't win LAN search, it doesn't matter. Like so odd, but
Yeah, it's definitely odd, but let's move on. We had a couple more
Mm.
teams to talk about. I know we chatted about them a little bit in the beginning, but I want to spend a little more time and talk about ROKKR, another team that's in the mix. Obviously, 1-1 again. Dylan, my question to you, obviously you're on the roster. Reflecting on the weekend, what you saw in person, what do you think that they need to work on in order to not only qualify for champs, but I think for this team, I assume like after you make it a champs, they want to try and make it as deep in that tournament as possible. Like, what do they need to work on right now as a squad?
Right now, I think it's just their respawns. I think when they play like a top 8 team in respawn, like you just see a lot more struggles. Because when they play like the Londons and like the lower tier teams, like they're like, oh shit, like ROKKR's back. They look really good. But then when they play against a team that knows how to play respawn, something goes wrong, and it kind of seems like the game plan just out the window, and they're not able to get it done. And I think that's been their biggest thing since Fame replaced me on the roster. Like their search is definitely improved, but their respawn is just not good when they play the top teams.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Chris, do you think like just like New York, their ROKKR sometimes has a weird play style compared to some other squads, or do you think it's pretty by the book?
I mean, ROKKR is like, I feel like I don't think they play like a risky, crazy style like New York does. Like at least like when I watch them, like when we have obviously played against them, or if I ever catch them in a match. But like, I don't know. Like I think their team is just like they have a lot of X factors. I feel like Bance is an X factor. I feel like Bance has moments where he looks like, again, he plays a very winning play style of Call of Duty, and when he's going off, it's very like when you guys got third or whatever deal, like and like potentially even second there, they're really good. Like Bance is really good, but like I also feel like he's a major X factor where like sometimes he doesn't always do that, and then it's like tough, and then it's like I don't know. I feel like they have like X factors. Even Cammy sometimes like I feel like Cammy can be like fucking disgusting, and then like sometimes like like it's like he's like a little weird like. I just feel like they're a very like hit or miss team because of some of like just like some of their players like just tend to have like I don't know, and maybe that's something again their system is just like wrong a lot, so maybe that's what it is. Like I don't really know like the answer to them specifically, but they just have a very like odd play style to me, and I do feel like it's not like the risky, super risky, crazy play style like New York. I feel like it's like a little bit opposite than that, so it's like I don't know.
Definitely the pacing is different. There's a concept in Formula One called setup windows. So like Formula One cars are similar but different. You go to different tracks, high downforce, slow downforce tracks. You got to set the car different ways.
Yeah.
And cars like Red Bull, it can maximize their performance a lot better than say Ferrari or Mercedes that have a lot like smaller window to get that best speed, best performance, best cornering. And I feel like ROKKR, one of those teams you talk about, Bance is an X factor. I think Afro is also an X factor. I think in the way that Ben is inconsistent, I think at times Afro has been inconsistent. I think even Cammy is also at times inconsistent. I think to your point, Dylan, it's like against the weaker teams, they exploit a lot of their bad decision makings really well because of how ratty their play style is. But when they play better teams who I think are a lot faster, and if the ROKKR players aren't engaged, they get in a lot of trouble in respawns because I just don't think off the rip that they're like outside of Afro that there's some like mega speed demon like going to absolute suffocate you type team.
Yeah, I definitely that's the like biggest issue. Like when their backs up against the wall, that's when they struggle and like can't really get out of like those bad situations where like a better respawn team can get out of those situations and then take over the game and dominate. So that's their biggest thing. Like there's too many X factors and not enough like consistent dominance from a certain player or players to where it's just like, oh, hopefully this guy goes off. Oh, hopefully that guy goes off. Oh, this guy went off, but this guy got shit on. Like there's not like it's all give and take, and it's just not gonna work especially when you're playing against the top like 8 teams.
And I also think weirdly for ROKKR, their search has just been for the players on this team. It's been weird to see their struggles in S&D. I think they kind of normalized it a little bit after stage 4, but stage 3 was
stage 3 was not
bad.
good.
It was bad. So. Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see what ROKKR do. They're in the mix, and obviously, as we mentioned earlier, like they're not Hundo P in champs just yet. They're gonna have to play well to split, and they've got Vegas, Toronto. Sorry, they got Vegas, Toronto, and LA Thieves coming up.
They have a hard split.
That is difficult.
Very difficult split.
So we'll see if they make winners bracket. Last team I want to talk about. This is more of a fun topic. So we talked about Boston earlier. We talked about the Sunny Q thing. They obviously beat ROKKR. I want to talk about some of the banter that was on Twitter afterwards. In particular, one conversation I thought was really funny. It was between Benjamin Beans and one of everybody's favorite Call of Duty players, Large P, Big P, aka Gunless. They had a little bit of a fun back and forth on Twitter. It started with Gunless discussing Beans' reaction to killing two like people that were maybe free kills in a listen-in. He said like the Beans just screamed from shooting two people that weren't even looking at him. Beans said, peculiar tweet. Then Pierce started, throwing some bombs on the timeline. And then, Beans went back and forth. And then at one point, Murph V, who's one of the members of the ownership at Boston Breach at Oxygen, also got involved, and then Pierce roasted him. So it was just really funny. Pierce Pierce also chip checked Beans at one point at the end of the conversation because Beans basically said like you're stuck in challengers, and Pierce is like, well, you don't have an MVP or a chip, so what are we doing here? So I just thought it was a really funny conversation and curious, Chris, your thoughts reading it back.
I mean, yeah, I was not expecting Pierce to just kind of.
I think he went out of his way.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I feel like he definitely picked this fight. Yeah, that's what I mean. He was definitely in a mood where he's like, I want to
Twitter was
argue.
lit.
Yeah,
Twitter was lit. This is the post sounding cute. Like Twitter that night was people taking pod shots at each other.
Everyone, yeah.
But like this one,
well, that's so random though. Like
yeah,
he called out you guys got 2 kills in the back. Like, yes, I mean, but like, why make a big deal about that? Like,
well,
it doesn't really matter.
I'll say this.
Still won.
I'll say this to back Big P up to a little bit. I've had kind of issues with Boston with this version of this team, even without Reese Nero, in that I don't feel like when you listen to listening, there's a lot of small talk. And I feel like naturally the AR players should assist on that team, but Big Wake's not going to do it. He's not like
he seems pretty quiet.
He's quiet.
Yeah,
so it kind of relies on Ben, and Ben's like still very much sometimes in Challenger's mindset of like, I get 2 kills, like shit on. But even Scrap, who does that, also small talks a lot.
No, Scrap's very vocal though. Scrap's got really good comms. Yeah.
So I think it is a fair criticism of Ben of his communication. I think Big P kind of put that on the timeline. Then Beans didn't reply to it until like hours later. So then Pierce is probably annoyed at that point because it's just like it got lost in the shuffle, and then he went out and found the tweet and then started adding me. And Pierce, he's always going to back up his beef. So I thought it was one of those funny COD community shit talk things.
Yeah, it was just one of those very random argument. Yeah,
it was so random. It's like I didn't know I wanted this argument or needed it, but it happened. So
yeah,
good entertainment for no reason.
To assess the argument, I guess Pierce is not wrong at all. I'm not saying you can't scream dead and shit. You know what I mean? Like I'm not dude, hype and adrenaline, hype adrenaline, that focus. Like people, first of all, some teammates actually prefer that. Some teammates hate that. Everyone's different. Everyone's got their own fucking way of thinking of that. Like some people, for example, use Clay, love Clay when he's hyped, and some people think that's fucking annoying. You know what I mean? That's some people can't focus like that. So everyone's different in the sense. I think that's very team oriented, team to team, who you're playing with and who cares and stuff. But at the end of the day, I don't think you can really argue against the fact of shooting 2 people in the back and doing that. You should probably be trying to call out spawns and other stuff like that if that's your role on the team too. It depends on if probably I don't think Wake calms it as much, and I think the other 2 are running around like lunatics all the time and stuff. I do think it's kind of I guess similar to what Dan does with OpTic. I feel like Dan's got pretty good comms and communication, and he leads them pretty well, and he's got Shotzi and Kyler running around like fucking lunatics, and he's kind of doing a lot of not the thinking for them, but you know my point. He's facilitating them, yo, they're spawning here, I'm blocking this, I'm doing that, we're missing this guy, all that stuff. That doesn't hurt any team ever. So I don't know what their plan is and all that stuff, but Pierce's original point is correct. But yeah, it was just definitely an unnecessary jab, and that's what I mean. Yeah. So it's I don't really mind what Pierce said. He just kind of put it out a lot more, in a different, and it definitely didn't deliver it well. And I think he was trying to do that obviously on purpose, but yeah, I definitely think communicating who's missing and where they're spawning, or the 2 people that I just shot in the back where I'm screaming dead shit on, where are those 2 spawning? What are we blocking? What are we missing?
Yeah.
Are we challenging this together? Last guy's in the hill. He's in this corner. Let's swing. I'm challenging now. Swing. Boom. that stuff can only make you a better player. But to like Beans' is like defense, like he is still super new. Like it's like this is his first year in the CDL. Like I
his
think
first
yeah,
couple
like it's
months
not
in the
like
CDL.
and so I think Pierce was giving relatively decent criticism in a very bad way. Is that's
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
yeah, I would say it's to Beans though. I like Beans.
Beans is good.
He's
Yeah.
great in search. The problem for this Boston team is if you look at where they stack compared to your team, Chris, Thieves, OpTic, even Toronto, there's a significant lack of experience on this Boston team. And you could potentially argue that that's maybe what's preventing them
Maybe.
from progressing farther as a team. And it then might become a situation that you want to address that with the personnel decision in the offseason. I think it's very hard to swap out sub players in this league in free agency. We've discussed that at length,
Yeah.
like off stream before.
Yeah.
So they're going to look at ARs. I would be mind blown if they drop Big Wake, and that's where we land on Beans. And like I do think that's something Ben needs to work on because it might end up being part of the reason that he might be moved back to maybe a sub role in this team if they go after a Claser type of veteran AR to come in and maybe bring them what they need to finally get over the hump.
I don't know about all that, but I don't know.
But you see my thought process. Though.
I see
like,
your
that's,
thought
that's,
process, but I don't know about all that. I don't know if Beans is getting himself dropped because of that. Like because of that. Like I mean, they literally had methods. No,
They did have Zen, but then Zen retired though. It's not like they dropped him.
okay.
Zen decided, well, my time's over, and then naturally had Ben. To
No,
just pick
yeah.
him
I mean,
up.
I know
Yeah.
Zen was in a weird spot, but like
And they weren't playing that bad with Zen.
With Zen though, they weren't a top 2 team. Zen's got good comms.
They've never at any. Well, that's the thing. They've never
So-
gotten to that level.
so-
That's the next goal for them.
So your point
They've
to
tried.
that though is like that's what I mean. Like I don't know. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just going to be the sole reason. Again, as much as your point is correct about the experience and like communication is a big part of experience and all that stuff is very important. Honestly, even with my team currently, I do think our comms are fucking horrible sometimes. You know what I mean? Like so, like that is a very important thing to all teams and stuff. I do think it's a little bit more than just that. So I don't know if Beans is going to get himself dropped because he can't fucking.
No, I mean, but
that's like
it might be a situation, Chris, where like
I think there's a lot more to that team than we all know.
it's going to be like a who brings what to the table situation. Because look, Boston's issue is this. I really like how they've conducted this project over the last 2 years. They went in and have been very competitive since they've come in the CDL. Like they have been a relevant team essentially from their time in the beginning. And I tip that because it's not easy to take. They basically had a team of leftovers to start the season last year, and they made that team pretty good. They weren't winning, but like chips, but they were good. Then this year, they've been a factor all season, and they've had some decent land placings. Decent because it's a deep league, and getting top 4, top 6, I think is for a team like that is typical. But they haven't yet made it to a grand final. They haven't yet won a grand final, and at some point in this project, you want to get there. And so, to my point, it's like they might look again if they have another season. Or they net like top 4, top 6 this year. It's like, well, like, is this path going to get us to top 2, or do we need to do something and make one more change to get us there? And I'm just very curious what they're going to do because it's hard from a personnel side to like upgrade the submachine gun position. Unless they're about to take a run at Pred, which I think is going to be difficult for them to outmuscle some other bigger orgs to get a player like that. And it's going to then naturally figure out to what they do about the AR parts. That was kind of my thought process.
Yeah,
but we can.
I'm gonna
go ahead. Let people have a final thought.
No, I mean, my final thought is not. I'm not gonna say it on this, but yeah, we'll talk about it all. Like I just can't. Like what I would do. I'm not.
Chris and I will hit the FaceTime after and discuss. Cool. Well, that's it on teams. Let's take a look at the schedule for next week. I'm not trying to say this to be a dick, but I truly think that this might be one of. I think it's just because we're at the end of the season and like, you know, LAG, Florida, London, again, we didn't discuss them a lot on the show, but their teams they've essentially either been eliminated for champs or in the case of, I think, London, LAG, they play each other this weekend and whoever wins is eliminated, but likely all 3 teams will be eliminated from making champs by the end of next week. And we've got then a lot of these dead matchups. So Chris, if you want to pull it up, I think this, you know, it is the last bounty match week, I believe. A lot of these matches, I think, are potentially fairly lopsided. I'm curious what you guys think about that. You want to pull it up, Chris?
Yeah,
and we can take a look.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, good.
This is the schedule coming up right now. So
Schedule time.
yeah, okay. So here we go. Is this a Monster Energy matchup? This isn't a bounty, right? These are bounties. Okay.
No, this is like the
What the
old
fuck
like
is a Monster Energy
game.
matchup?
Oh, it's
It's
like
just
the old bro. So
Their
when I was in the league,
sponsors.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is this a sponsor thing?
When
All right, that was.
when I was at
Yeah.
E last year, they had the Game Fuel marquee
Yeah,
matchup. This is their
okay.
version of that.
That's
So,
okay. I didn't know if there was a
Yeah.
yeah, okay, whatever. So the
so
so our bounty so is it which bounty match is the bounty match right now? Is it London
So-
versus Atlanta? Is it goes with
So
the
Chris,
one
actually, it might be
Yeah.
easier in the outline. There's a tweet. There's a
Oh, there's a
CDL.
tweet? All right, hold up.
Yeah, pull up the tweet. Might be easier to look at than scrolling through this because it shows
Okay,
you
yeah.
what the bounty matchups are.
Oh, I
Because
see
they're
it. Yep, I'm tripping.
there's 3 in there on Saturday, and I would argue it's FaZe versus London, Thieves versus Florida, and New York versus LAG. And
Here
you
we
can
go.
argue that all 3 of them are like pretty one-sided because they
Wait,
involve
those are
Florida,
bounty
London.
matches?
Yeah.
Yeah, these are bounty matches. Florida versus LA Thieves, Atlanta FaZe versus
Oh
London.
nah.
Uh,
Who said these
Seattle
bounty
versus
matches up?
Boston, LAG versus New York. Like,
Okay, so
I feel like the Sunday ones are like pretty solid
yeah,
bounty matches.
LV versus
But
Minnesota is a good one.
The Saturday ones,
Yeah.
the first 2 are in like NY.
Sunday's
should be
actually pretty
LAG,
good.
But LAG could, randomly turn up a little bit. But like the first 2 bounty matches, they're going to hell for whoever set that up.
Well,
The problem is they want to give every team, I assume,
yeah.
2 bounty matches.
Equal. You have to do it equally.
Yeah.
This is why bounty matches shouldn't be a thing. God,
Here's what I think they should do with
Spend money
bounty
elsewhere.
matchups. You were kind of going toward this idea earlier, Dylan. I wasn't even thinking about it before the show starts, so I'm tipping you. So if this happens and the league takes this idea, give all credit to Dylan. I think if you want to keep doing the bounty thing, take that money, and when teams are scoring up at these home series, that's your bounty match. Put money on the line for those land matches instead of these random teams scoring up online. Like,
Yeah.
cool,
Yeah.
the couple thousand is great, but like actually put that money on land. Like maybe you can even make it a charity element too if we're talking on land. Like I don't know, but like right now the way they deploy the bounty matches, I would love to know if they have data supporting whether or not it's driving viewership or not. Because those matches, I'm telling you, during Major 5 are not going to get a lot of views on Saturday.
No, the bounty matches just need to be gone and done differently. It's just these are stupid.
Yeah.
It's a decent amount of money.
Put the money to different
No,
things.
yeah,
that could be
exactly.
used.
Yeah, like it's just.
I mean, it's a great amount of money. You make what 2,500
120K.
each.
It's 120K to spend on bounty matches.
Yeah, like as a player, like
Yeah.
FaZe and LET are licking their lips right now. They're like, "Oh, we played London and Florida for a bounty match. Say less. That's dinner. That's a couple of nice nights out in the city in Atlanta and LA. So they're licking their lips. They're hyped, but it could be used better elsewhere
Yeah.
for sure.
Luno in my chat said, "What if nobody has a home series?" Though, as far as I know, a lot of teams are thinking about it. We'll know probably when the summer starts if we actually get some or not. I think we'll see a couple more teams do it next year. You don't have to. I think for the even the home series concept, it doesn't need to be in some grand ornate theater or some NHL arena. You could do it in some cool box venue that seats like a couple hundred people.
Mhm.
I just think the idea of especially for these teams that we're getting out of, some of the worst parts of COVID, like we're getting to a point where people can go out and hang out and all that stuff. Like you can run these events, like actually being able to activate your local market's really key. And those are really good ways to do that.
Yeah.
And get your team out there, yada, yada, yada.
Or imagine, I have a crazy idea. Like, even if they don't do the home series matches, it would be really cool to be in LAN in person more money on it. Imagine there was these things on Saturday and Sunday. Instead of when there's always qualifier matches, there's a tournament with the 12 teams in the Call of Duty League, kind of like where they are in a bracket and they just play it out throughout that same day. And then there's a winner, maybe a couple 50K tournaments, a 25K. That would be crazy. I feel like people would love to watch those things on Saturday and Sunday. I don't know if that's happened before in the past.
That's never been done before, Dill. No.
But
no,
I think that would be pretty entertaining to see a whole day of Call of Duty instead of just one team play one match each.
Nah, I don't think that's been done before, so that's tough. But maybe.
Maybe.
So a couple
And every
things.
team could stream it and everything. That would be pretty cool.
So I think that's a really good idea. So we'll see if it happens. Obviously, what a novel concept doing stuff on LAN. I want to address something I saw in my chat from Jay Squad Walker. Did the bounty money come from the Challengers prize pool? No, I think this is probably money that comes from marketing. Like I assume it's a marketing exercise, and they're not pulling it from the executional parts of Challengers. Although I would say an idea is to put that money, that 120K into Challengers would be a good idea. That's another way you can spend that money and have it be worth probably more value Again,
I mean, I
this
think
is like
I think doing
normal
that is more
content.
value than the bounty matches.
Yeah. It's not going to drive you necessarily viewership engagement increase, but it like adds people to. Adam Episode calls it the funnel. It's like with challengers at the bottom of the period. If you're driving people to play challengers, it means that like they're going to go also and watch events. They're going to compete at challengers. Like you're going to go to Toronto, play, and they eliminate. They're also going to sit there and watch the event. So it's like you're driving
Yeah.
people to attend. So you can put a sold out sign. So blah 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 blah. Like it all kind of works at the end of the day. So
Yeah.
we got a couple of questions in my chat that I want to do. One from Proto in my chat, aka
Oh,
Nick
God.
Proto. Out of all active CDL coaches, if one had to sub in, who do you think would perform the best?
Out of all who's the coaches?
I'm thinking just off the top of my
You?
head, I'm thinking Chris and Looney.
So Chris,
Danny.
Cap,
Chris.
Shane, Marky B,
Uh-huh.
Troy Center, Michaels, D Real, like you got like Josh, Den, Zed, and them all at Boston. Who am I missing?
I just don't know if certain coaches
Well,
play as much because I know there is certain coaches that play the game more and like rank play and other stuff more than others. But
Yeah, because that's what I'm saying. I don't know who still plays COD like a lot.
yeah,
Are we saying like sub in today, or are we saying like sub in like in like
seven a day. You're in the roster. You're
Oh,
swimming against
Jesus
other teams.
Christ. I don't know. Probably like Cap or Looney, right?
I'm
feel like
voting
that's a-
Crowder.
I'll take that.
In a solo dolo war zone with all the coaches. I think Crowder wins.
It sounds like
Oh,
Nick's
Joe.
taking
Wait,
Crowder,
Joe.
too.
Yeah, don't forget about Joe too. Joe's good.
Yeah,
oh
it's true.
yeah, Joe,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I don't
That
know.
was good.
But I think out of everyone, I would say Cap or Looney, personally. That'd be my
Cap,
pick.
one of the all-time goats.
Who do you? Wait, who's
who do I
Cap
have?
replacing on LA Thieves?
What? Who does Cap replace
Well,
on
he would
Thieves?
have to be an AR now. I feel like
Nah,
Yeah,
Cap's
you
got the
can't
young.
trust-
Cap's got the young gunny with the sub, bro.
you can't sub a coach in to be like a SMG player because that's just like too impactful. But then also
No, yeah,
everyone,
yeah.
the AOs and LATs are fucking gross.
Wait,
so-
whoa. I think I could take a BZ spot.
Honestly, yeah. You probably have like what over like 40 plus first bloods compared
I
to
mean,
everyone
listen,
else in SMG?
Chris is the
Look,
clutch master in search. Like it's not like
I am gonna search, but I can guarantee you that I get 50 engagements per hard point. I'm not saying how the engagements will look like kills and deaths,
They might
but they'll be
5 and
50 of them.
45,
Well, I mean,
but
Yeah, they'll
I
be
mean,
50 of them with a sub,
you
bro.
did run a sub. I mean, you ran a sub on FaZe at the end, like when you guys
Yes,
got
I
T3
did.
champ.
I dropped a
You
1
ran a
point, I think 1 KD in hard point at that. Thank you very much. And then Black Ops 4 came out and everything went to fucking hell. Yeah.
Whatever, it's all good. We don't
But
talk
yeah,
about that. But
It's all good. That never
bad
happened.
times.
that's a good, funny question from Nick
No,
Proto.
that
Appreciate
is funny.
that one. I saw one other question. Let me find it. Blah 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 blah. Scroll up.
Who you guys? Those are boring.
I'm trying to find the question.
What?
Oh, I can't believe I lost. Oh, here it is. It's from X Visions in my chat. We'll finish with this. This is a fun one. Another coaching ish question.
Ugh.
Thoughts on? Well, wait
What,
for the question
bro?
first. Thoughts on Karma possibly coaching for champs? So Damon has come on like our watch
Oh.
parties. He's told the like OpTic guys that he would potentially love the coach. Shotzi said, "Well, every time you do that, you're like 2 drinks deep." So I don't know how real I think you are. About that. But do you think that Damon? Seriously consider it for a second. Like, do you think that, say, in the way that Krista, like Pierce, helped your team in the run in during Cold War year, like, do you think that Damon coming in during, say, like the sort of boot camp period between Major 5 and champs, really helping provide another set of eyes, you think could be really useful to OpTic?
I mean, Damon specifically, yeah. I mean, I think Damon is like kind of like, I don't know Damon super well, but I know him like well enough, obviously throughout the years. I feel like with this OpTic team, at least how they seem, like, you know, they're a very like chill team, like they get along together. They got a bunch of funny personalities, like a pretty chilled out team. I feel like Damon kind of fits that mold where like the extra set of eyes for him. He's really smart, one of the best Call of Duty players of all time, yada yada, like the GOAT. I think like he can provide like good advice, and it wouldn't be like overbearing to the point where it's like, you know what I mean? Like, because you have to remember, like, they're so good and they're playing so well, and like they have JP, like whatever they're doing is working really well. Like, you don't want to like overthink and have too much eyes on it, but I do think Damon's like kind of like a really good fit for them, where it's like he wouldn't come
He's not gonna
in
be super serious,
Yeah,
like demanding,
yeah.
you need to do this. Like,
exactly.
he just kind of be slightly, maybe you guys should try this. Maybe you guys should do this, and then like
And maybe it's
I
not
feel like it
something.
match-
Yeah, maybe it's not something like I feel like this is kind of underrated, and maybe you see this more in the future or something too. But maybe it's not like a head coach like every day, 7 days a week. Like I run the team, you know what I'm saying? Like kind of role for him as much if it's like almost like I guess like consulting, like in the sense like he like sits in here and there. Not every goddamn scrim too. Like again, a lot of people probably including Damon don't want to watch a scrim and a best of 11 every day for 6 hours a day and then go over VODs. And you have to say like so maybe it's something where like he consults here and there too and like gives them like some advice that he sees. Like like so it's like I think that would be really good. Like probably it couldn't hurt them is my point. I think OpTic is in a really, really good position right now. I think they're a really, really good team. I have a lot of respect for the way they play. I think like weirdly enough, like I feel like Damon would be like a perfect fit for something like that. Like I think he's really good at it because like it depends on how dedicated he was going to be. Because like the shots he commented about like him being like 2 drinks deep, I don't know if he's going to want to sit there and watch like 7 hours of COD every single fucking day. Yeah, for another fucking 40 days straight. You know what I mean? But more, it's like more like consulting, and like I do think that's like also kind of an underrated thing. You don't always need to be 7 days a week, like hands on, like micromanaging everything and being annoying. Like I don't know, it could definitely work.
All right, I said we would be dumb, but Nameless is in my chat, and let me not ego him. He has 2 questions. First question is for Chris. How does he keep getting handsome with more age? Same with Dylan. You guys have the immortality glitch.
Yeah, Chris, how do you do it?
Yeah, I mean that's a Dylan question, bro. I feel like Dylan gets older. I feel like Dylan's been getting older and he keeps looking fucking like younger. I don't know. That's a Dylan question, not me, bro. How do you do it,
I don't
Dylan?
know.
What's your skincare routine, Dylan? What's it at, bro? What you doing?
I did get straight from the airport and have a little spa night last night, so it was
Okay.
pretty good. It was pretty
Okay.
good.
Exactly my fucking point, bro.
This some like
I had a little spa night going.
interesting. Ant's other question, which I know we talked about Boston earlier, but Ant was curious our thoughts on how Boston actually played in that ROKKR series. Because from Ant's perspective, he felt like that was probably like one of the best that they've looked. I'm curious if you guys think that.
Oh wait,
case or you think it's a little bit of like honeymoon sort of period thing with Boston with the Reese instead of Nero.
Well, I was gonna say I think Reese is like kind of how we talked about LAT, how like the numbers don't really matter with them. I don't think Reese. You should really look at Reese's numbers and be like, oh, that's the issue for his team. I think he's has a good understanding of what needs to be done. I will say sometimes he does a little too much and gets a little too crazy, but he does a lot for the team, and I don't think anyone can really disagree with that. I think he's a very important player to have in your team, and I mean, we've seen it. They were terrible in Hardpoint, and now, of course, they only played ROKKR, which are not the best respawn team, but they dominated them in like 3 respawns, so it's a good start for the team, and I think they're going to be better. I don't know how much better, but they're definitely going to be better with this 4. I don't know if it's going to be take them to the next level where they can win tournaments, but they're definitely going to be better across the respawn game modes.
I think Reese again is like underratedly helpful. I think they played really well. They look good or whatever, but like I think it's kind of like what I was saying with Kenny in a sense. Like it's not always like even Hixie too. It's not always like this number thing that like turns the team around and it's like all of a sudden like it's just like some dominant like oh Vivid's the best player in the game like he's the reason why they're winning. Like I think the way he plays Call of Duty like sets them up to have more of a chance of winning, and I think like he just fits the mold for them better. And I think like in general they just like kind of look better with him. So I don't know. I think they look pretty good so far.
Your responses, we'll see how Boston does going forward. I think Sackman's got a question, but unfortunately, Sack, I think we're gonna wrap it up. So
what does Ballsack have to say? Quick, one second. What is it?
Ben, do we know if the season next year is starting earlier because it's ending in June this year? I would usually around this time of the year, they're still starting the process of getting ownership to buy in or agree to whatever the schedule is for next season. So I haven't heard any concrete on the start date, but at this point this year, they haven't yet 100% like said this is the schedule. Normally at this point, they presented a couple options and they're getting feedback.
Okay. Yeah,
that's usually how that goes.
It
I would have no
should
idea.
be starting because if it starts later, we'll have like an 8-month off season, which wouldn't make much sense. So it should probably be starting around the same time it did this year, which was like what, December?
Yeah,
Mid-December?
I mean, basically, if anything this year proved, man, whenever this new premium content for Call of Duty comes out, should be
Season's gotta start.
when the first event.
Yeah.
Maximize that window, it's a marketing window. It's
We'll
new
have
eyeballs
rank
coming back. Don't wait till fucking end of January to run an event. Like we did that the first couple years of CDL. It sucked. This year we had our first event in December and amazing viewership. So don't mess it up.
Or by then they'll have the hacking situation figured out too. Maybe.
Just
Maybe. Hopefully.
Good one.
All right.
Maybe.
We've false started the ending a couple times. Chris, am I doing the outro or are you doing the outro? What's going on
I
here?
can do the outro. I mean, that about wraps it up. I appreciate everybody, obviously, from all the chats that came in, asked questions, provided all the stuff that we needed to obviously talk about stuff more in depthly. Today was a good episode. Dylan, again, I don't know if you're a co-host or a guest at this point.
Co-host right
Yeah,
now.
so like, thanks.
regular guest at
I
this
don't even
point.
know if I want to say a thank you for joining us, considering like I feel like it's almost like you're just a part of this. We're just gonna get you a cam box, but yeah, dude, I appreciate obviously Ben and Dylan hanging out with me and doing the podcast. This will be up on YouTube and all Spotify, Apple Pod, like everything, all the platforms, right, Ben? Or what?
Yeah, mostly all the platforms.
Mhm.
You can go to.
I don't want to say a wrong one.
If you check out the YouTube link, it's got a link to all the other
Yeah,
audio
it'll have everything in there in the
platforms.
description.
Yeah, I mean those are the big ones, but we're on
Okay.
like Stitcher and all the other stuff as well.
Yeah, but yeah, everything that you need to know about where to find this podcast that's not just on YouTube, which will be on the channel, is going to be in the description below as well. So I appreciate you guys coming out and watching the podcast. We had a lot of fun. We'll try and get another episode in next week after some matches. Hopefully we have some cool stuff to talk about, some more crazy drama, and no way you call me Ball Stack on the podcast. I just did again. Hold that. All right. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll see you guys next episode.
Peace.
Peace.